Takunda. Welcome to the Shape Nos podcast.
Hey Njabulo, how are you doing? And greetings to your audience. Thank you for having me on. Very excited to get this going today.
Great, man. Looking forward to the conversations. Maybe let's start with some of that early context for you and tell us a little bit more about yourself, your upbringing, and how all of that has culminated into the person that you are now as an entrepreneur.
Wow. Okay. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Do we really, anyone really know who they are really? But
Yeah.
myself, my name is Takunda Chiweza. I'm a Zimbabwean. I'm a patriotic Zimbabwean, as you can see with the
Yes.
flags behind me.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention that. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yes, a very patriotic Zimbabwean. I love people. I love to create. And I've applied myself in the field of marketing and sales and in various aspects where I try and use my skills, I try and use my capabilities to enhance the African agenda. And primarily, I do this through my work with the Young Africa Network, where we are trying to shape a new narrative of what Zimbabwe is about, what Africa is about, and what the future of Africa looks like. We do this through content creation, through discussions with people like yourself, through event platforms, and through facilitating different opportunities for young, different entrepreneurs to take a hold of, whether that be scholarships, whether it be learning initiatives, whether it be fellowships. We make that information available because what I really believe is that information is the key to success. And that information gap can be the biggest thing differentiating you doing well and you not doing well. You can have the smartest person in the world, you can have the most capable person in the world, but if they don't have access to the information about the available opportunities, they're dead in the water. So that's one of the ways that I've applied myself. And I, like a good Zimbabwean, I am an entrepreneur, a bit of a jack of all trades, and I'm in the logistics space, which I've been involved in for the last 5 years. I run a freight forwarding business called Tanganyika Export Management, where we specialize in the movement of special cargo out of Zimbabwe. So that's me professionally. As a person, like I said, I really have a passion for people. I love to work with people. I love to talk to people and to interact on different levels and share the bit of wisdom that I think I've gathered through my few years on this planet and learn as much as I can from the people I encounter.
Great. I want us to maybe dwell a little bit on patriotism. You know, there's so much that's said, and people throw that word quite a lot. I'm interested in knowing what that means to you. How does that play out in your life? What does that mean to be patriotic, and how do you actuate that?
You know, I don't know if you've been following a lot of these dramas that you're seeing coming out of South Africa, for example, with this Chidima scandal, this Miss Universe Chidima scandal. Or a lot of the dramas that you see happening in Europe right now with migration and immigrants and the way they're being treated, leaving their countries and arriving in Europe and how the locals feel about them. Or in the US about the Haitians eating the dogs and eating the cats. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
I think, you know, I don't know if your audience is Shona speaking, but everyone has got a place where they are from. And it's very difficult to assimilate into a new environment, a new culture, a new society. They have their ways, they have their norms. And it's always difficult being a foreigner in a foreign land. But you have your land, you have your place where you are from, you have your place where you are born, where opportunities, where there should be an environment that facilitates and fosters and incubates opportunities for you, the natives of that place. When I'm in a foreign land, you cannot open, you know, if you're not local or if you don't have a residence permit there or you're illegal or whatever the case may be, you cannot open a bank account. You cannot simply, even just communicating, you don't understand the cultural nuances. You don't really feel like you're from there. And every person has a place that they are from. That's your home. That's your country. Now, what I believe patriotism is being able to develop and foster that place, because no one is going to develop and foster that place for you. As our president says, and I really believe that, you know, regardless of where you fall on the political divide, that is the truth, that a country is built by the people who are from there. You are never going to be, you know, even if you move and you get a citizenship in another country, ultimately, you know where you're from. And it's up to us to develop and incubate and create the country and the society that we want to see, that we want to live in. That's what I believe patriotism is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
and be proud of it, and to be proud of that.
Yeah, exactly. So how are you guys as an organization trying to conscientize people or trying to push the Zimbabwean brand? Because like the reason why I asked that first question is, there's a lot of like nominal patriotism, right? Where
Mm.
people just go around and saying they're patriotic. For instance, I always give this like a perfect example of, people that call themselves Pan-Africanists, but everything that they wear, they, beat their shoes, it's Gucci, whatever it is that they're putting on, or, they essentially buy from all these European Western brands, and yet they call themselves Pan-Africanists. So to me, that is, as they say, talk is very cheap, but it's the kind of people that walk the talk that I think are actually, the ones that are patriotic or Pan-Africanist in the case that I just mentioned. So what are you guys doing as an organization in terms?
I think one of the first things I'll get into, work as an organization and then work
Yeah,
from the individual point of view. But one of
yeah,
the first things is that each and every single person has to take it on their back. You have to wear Zimbabwe on your back as yourself. And
exactly.
people who have traveled around, people who are more exposed can tell you that when you move around internationally, it's only people who aren't exposed who think that so it's embarrassing to be from your country, to speak Shona, or that you have to speak perfect English to fit into a
Yeah,
certain community, or that you need to deny where you're from. What I found is that whenever I move around the world, people actually celebrate the diversity and the uniqueness of your culture and where you're from.
exactly.
People do celebrate that. And as an organization, what I believe really shapes where you're from is the narrative. The narrative. We underestimate the power of storytelling. We really underestimate the power of storytelling and what that mental picture, the mental picture that we give ourselves, the mental picture that we give the rest of the world, how that affects our position in the world. When you go
Yeah,
out into the marketplace, when you go out looking for investment, when you go out looking for a visa, all of the
yeah,
stories that we tell about where we're from has a significant impact on that. Really, the work that we've been trying to do for the past 5 years is shape a different narrative about the opportunities that are there in Zimbabwe. The fact that there are young people, there are energetic people who are doing amazing businesses locally in Zimbabwe, people who don't have government relationships, people who don't have rich fathers, but people who are actually starting from the bottom. They're doing it and they can do it. And if they can do it, why can you not do it? People who are doing it through their own effort. So sometimes it's these
yeah,
stories that we tell ourselves, Kuti, like in Zimbabwe, you can't do it because this, that. But what we're really trying to do
yeah,
is show people an example of, wait a second, if that guy can do it, then why can't you? Let's
yeah.
stop making excuses all the time, because there are ways around it and people are doing it.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I like what you just talked about in terms of shaping the narrative. For the past few days, I was in the dark trenches of Twitter. And, I mean, up to that point, I kind of knew the people that were racist, but I think I sort of saw it firsthand because I had never experienced sort of racism. I noticed the way they were talking about, Africans. I mean, you also mentioned the Haitian thing, but it was really shocking and surprising. I'll probably share some of the screenshots after this call. But it just kind of, when you talked about narrative, it reminded me of that we need to take control of our narrative. Because like you're saying, that sometimes the temptation is to think that in as much as there are all sorts of bad things that, we find in our communities and all of that, I think if there's anything, we should all come together across the political divide as Africans, as Black people, to try and, put out positive stories. Because, wherever you go, if you're an African, that kind of perception is going to follow you, right? So it doesn't really matter if you speak good English or whatever it is. To them, you're still an African, right? So I think that's really important to
You
sort
know,
of take. Yeah,
in Jabulo, I'll even go one step further, and not just from, sometimes you need to look at what other people are doing and
yeah,
copy. At school,
exactly.
they say the smart kid is the one who copies the other smart kid. And
Yeah,
sometimes that's the case. But if you look around globally, look at the US, right, the world's biggest superpower.
yeah,
They have invested strongly in sharing their narrative. If
Exactly.
you actually understand that the US military is one of the biggest spenders in Hollywood, a lot of the movies that you see are funded by the US military because it gives you a perception of what they want you to believe about their country, right?
Exactly.
You look at countries like Russia. Russia has got RT News. RT News is Russia projecting onto the world what they want you to see of their country. You look at WEON
Yeah.
News. WEON News does the same for India. China has got what's this? CCTV, I believe. CCTV. So if you look at these large countries that are investing significantly in their public image and what we believe and what we see about them, what more of us? So I think
Yeah.
it's really imperative on us Africans. I love this saying, as they say, "Shiriyaga vuta reken." It's
Yeah.
imperative on us to share our stories because until the lion learns to write, the hunter will always tell the story and be the hero, right?
Exactly. Which kind of reminds me of something that I just read. I think a few weeks ago. So to do with the history of the Great Zimbabwe, right? And you had all these, mostly European writers and archaeologists who were really surprised by the magnificence of this site, and even there were all sorts of theories. And one of them was, it wasn't them; it was probably, the Arabs that did it, or it was the aliens or whatever. There's so many interesting narratives, but they they're trying as much as they can to kind of disqualify or completely dismiss the idea that indigenous people were actually behind this kind of magnificent structure. Right? But again, like you're saying, it's very difficult for you to kind of always shift the blame, but we need to take ownership of those narratives and actually try to project to the world what it is that we want, or what it is that we want to see. So yeah, I agree with you on that. So I also want to know, like, in terms of your own journey, who are some of those people that have inspired you to become the man that you are and the entrepreneur that you are today?
Definitely, I would say my father. My father is a gentleman known as retired Brigadier General David Chiweza. He served in
Okay.
the Zimbabwe National Army. He fought in the liberation struggle. He retired and became a diplomat for the country. He was defense attaché for Zimbabwe to China. He then left public service and went into the business field, where he then also went into philanthropy and published two books. One which is called The Last Stand, which is a book that addressed the epidemic of AIDS at the time in the 90s, when AIDS was really ravishing our population. And the second book was an economic book called Out of the Rabble, which outlines a way for Zimbabwe to build a model out of the economic turmoil that we're in. And I still believe in the ethos of that book and what it explains and how we can build our way out of the economic challenges we're in. He has really
Yeah.
shaped sort of my world and economic view. I'm also a student of economics, so I view the world from a socio-economic lens and believe that all these things are associated and aligned with each other. So, with his service for the country through the Liberation War, his service as a diplomat, and then also his influence as a businessman in the country, I've been able to witness a lot of that and to tap into a lot of the guidance and the lessons that he has for the country. And to understand that fighting the Liberation War is one thing, but being actually liberated is another thing. And
Yeah.
I believe that Zimbabwe is on the right trajectory. It's been very hard, but they always say that it's worth it. It'll never be easy, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's really shaped my outlook in what I believe about ownership of the means of production in your country, what I believe about patriotism, what I believe about us having pride in who we are and where we're from. And that's definitely, I think, where I get my world vision from. And I recommend for anyone who would like to get a bit of insight into some of the opportunities that we have as a country and some of the history of how we got where we are as a country and how we can build our way out as a country. I recommend you to look for the book Out of the Rabble, which will give you an idea, and maybe we can build as a nation blueprints on how to build our way out of the rabble, of the challenges we're facing.
Awesome. So, is there anything specific that your dad maybe shared with you? Any specific advice that has you have carried throughout the years?
I think the one thing that my dad always used to say to me was, when I was working in corporate, every time we'd meet, he would meet me and shake my hand and laugh at me and say, "So Taku, you've decided to be a slave." And that was always it. When you're corporate, there's what you call the golden handcuffs, and the
Yeah.
golden handcuffs are great because you're at a company, you get given a company car. At a company, they're paying for all your airtime. You're at a company, you've got a healthy salary, and that keeps you excited. You can buy a Jameson on the weekend. But at the end of the day, those are golden handcuffs that keep you trapped to the rat race. You never really take the risk of wanting to pursue something and delve into your real passion and what you were born to create, what you were born to do. I believe I was born to
Yeah.
create. I believe I was
Okay.
born to add value somehow. And it's very easy to get stuck in that loop of security, the security of a job. And unfortunately, in Zimbabwe, what happens as well in Zimbabwe is that a lot of people outside of the golden handcuffs, I think that's one silo that people get stuck in. But another silo that a lot of us get stuck in Zimbabwe, and of course with good reason, is the survival mechanism. Because
Yeah.
very often in Zimbabwe, you have to do what you have to do to survive and eat tomorrow. But the
Exactly.
problem with that is that it stops you from being able to plan for next year or for the next 5 years, because you just
Yeah.
need to do Jiripopa table. So I think
Yeah.
those are two cycles that he strongly advised me to stay away to stay away from, to have vision. Because of his military experience, he is very keen on strategic thought. Strategic thought is really outlined as having the ability to see into the future, to have vision, and to be able to turn vision into execution. And that's really what I am trying to do. I have a vision. I have somewhere I'm trying to go. I have something I'm trying to develop and build. And I'm a young man. I'm in the process of getting there. I'm not going to say I've got it all figured out, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to turn vision into execution. And this is what he's always encouraged me to do: is to have faith, to see things that other people do not see, to dream, to believe, to have that vision, and to work hard to lead people towards that same vision.
So what was that like final straw that pushed you away from the corporate world?
Luck. It was definitely luck. Fortunately, there was an opportunity that came about for my family to move out of the country, and
Okay.
with that, I was forced to resign from my job in corporate, and I had a lot of time to now really commit 100% towards trying to do my own thing. I'd always been fiddling with trying one deal there, trying one deal there, but in Zimbabwe, I find a lot of young people get stuck in this loop of madiri deals.
Yeah.
But
Deals.
that's not sustainable, because you do one, it disappears. You do one, it disappears. You do one, it disappears. Or it's not building a model. It's not building a system. So I was fortunate to have that opportunity to have a bit more time on my hands and to actually try and commit myself towards building something consistently. Right now, fortunately, I'm 1 year in the process of building a logistics business, which has done significantly well for a business that's been operating for a year. And to commit myself a bit more to my work with the Young Africa Network. There's a couple of initiatives that we're launching next year that I believe the audience and yourself will be able to take full advantage of. And that will be able to bridge that information gap for a lot of young Zimbabweans, older Zimbabweans, anyone who's hungry and eager for information and wants to develop themselves.
Yeah, so I think maybe just to go back a little bit. I mean, we obviously spoke about the importance of us getting in touch with our roots, and you spoke about the book that your dad wrote that is in line with that. But I've sort of found that there's a bit of a struggle, right? You have two kinds of people, right? The first one is you have people that are stuck in the past. That's, they kind of use the past to justify or completely ignore the present and just kind of fixate on the past, right? And then you have the second kind of person who completely dismiss the past, right? They're like, well, that was then, now is now. But then I think, but how do you suggest, people kind of sort of handle that balance to say, the past is important, but in as much as we're learning lessons from it, we still need to, kind of figure things out in the present and
I love the way you packaged your question, because I know exactly what you're talking about. But
yeah.
There's a famous saying by Mike Tyson, which
Yeah,
is everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
yeah,
And I think that's what happened to us in Zimbabwe. Um, there is, I know this will be very controversial, but there's a speech by Robert Mugabe, which he gave at the SA Business Summit. I believe this was in 2013.
yeah,
And I think that was a speech that really touched me as a born free. Born free being someone who was born after
yeah,
independence, who was never under colonial rule.
yeah,
And that was to say that when the war was fought for Zimbabwe, people did not go and die for a vote. People did not go into the bush to die for just a vote.
yeah,
They went into the war, into the bush to fight for what you do with that vote,
yeah,
right? And really, the struggle for our country was always about the means of production. It was always about being able to have the majority of the people in the country have the means of production, right? So that was always the plan, right? And that was the vision that in 100 years, in 200 years, the economic blueprint of Zimbabwe would look like the social demographics of the country. That was the plan. That was the
yeah,
long-term plan. Of course, that's the end goal. Now, in your journey towards the end goal, there are many milestones towards the end goal. There are many places where you're going to get it right. There's many places where you're going to get it wrong. So from my point of view, that doesn't excuse, our execution matters. How you execute matters. And it doesn't give us leeway to execute and do, whatever we want. The ends doesn't always justify the means.
yeah,
But I believe that it is important. I'm not an expert in every facet, but I believe it's important to always remember what the plan was and what the idea was and what the vision is, and where we've
yeah,
gone wrong, we can correct and still align to where we want to go. It's like we're trying to go to Bulawayo. We're trying to drive to Bulawayo, and you took a wrong turn. Let's realize that we took a wrong turn here and continue trying to get towards Bulawayo. I think
yeah,
that sort of encapsulates it. So for young people in Zimbabwe, let's remember what the end goal is and what we are
yeah,
trying to achieve. And let's not get caught up on our love or our commitment to the small
yeah,
ideas.
yeah,
Where we see we're going wrong, let's rectify it and go back towards where we need to be going.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was it, yeah, I'm forgetting his name. The guy from China, the president of China, at some point, he said, it doesn't matter what color the mouse is, as long as it can, doesn't matter what color the cat is, as long as it can catch mice, right? So I think like you're saying, I think it's something that you're also trying to articulate there to say, and I think one leader that probably sort of is a case in point for what we're just talking about is Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore. He emphasized, pragmatism over dogmatism, right? So like you're saying, if we have a vision, we have a goal, that should be our compass. We shouldn't sort of, kind of focus on side shows. So I like that you sort of brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, because a national project. Zimbabwe has been independent for 44 years. 44 years. A national project can take over. How old is the United States for it to reach
Yes,
the level
it's
that it's at?
76. Was it independence in the United States? 1776, I think.
So I think
Uh,
as a
fell to
people, we need to
yeah,
understand. We need to understand that we're only the second generation that's entering this. There's a lot of lessons we still need to learn as a country, as a
exactly.
society. If you look
True.
at the history of the United States, after 40 years, what was happening there? You'll be surprised.
Yeah. I mean, the
So
US went through all the shebang, civil war, So there's, I definitely get what you're saying.
yes, yes, yes. But we do need to create leaders, and it's one of the things that I worry about for Africa and Zimbabwe is that I do pray and hope that we have leaders who are responsible in the way they govern, but at the same time maintain a real Pan-African ideology.
Yeah. So my worry has always been, I think, going back to that kind of dichotomy. My worry is that the new crop of leaders or people in our generation there might be a problem that we've lost touch with the past, right? So I think that's what I was trying to describe. You could also like frame it as sort of a generational thing, not just past versus present, or just kind of those different perspectives. Because you have this generation that understands or appreciates the freedom that we have, right? Because they fought for it and they were part of that. And then you have the new crop or the new generation that does not have that context. And in some cases, I've seen young people become dismissive of that history, or not, take it seriously enough. So I think what would be your advice to young people in Zimbabwe that might not necessarily have that context, or in some cases it might not be their fault. Maybe they have that sort of beat down on them. How do we maintain that balance of knowing where we came from and actually being the ones to carry on this project, like you said, that it wasn't just about the vote, but it's also about the sort of economic emancipation and that kind of freedom as well.
I think the best way that I can maybe share this lesson is to share maybe my fear of a dystopian future.
Yeah.
This generation, Gen Z, millennials, imagine a future where you get everything you want.
Yeah.
You get these things that you're begging for. You get all your fast internet connectivity. You get all your latest iPhones. You can rent your BMW 3 Series. You can, pay your gym membership that gets deducted from your salary every month. You've got all of those things. These are the things that Gen Z and millennials want, right? We want we have been groomed into the consumer culture of capitalism. What happens is that you then end up in a society where you're groomed to be consumers. You've got all you've got your McDonald's, you've got your Starbucks, you've got Jesse Jamuruda, you've got all that stuff. But then you yourself will never be able to have ownership. Where multinationals come in and there's no more Econet, but you've got Vodacom.
Okay.
And there are no locals who are actually in charge and directing the course of where their country is going. This is a dystopian future which is possible, whereby, yes, you can have all the
Very
goods,
possible.
you can have all the services, you can have all of the stuff that you need, but you yourself, as the custodian of that country, have no say in how it's shaped. Because you got everything you wanted, but you're just a consumer. You're not a decision maker. And this is the potential risk that we face as a generation, where we are just passengers in our own country.
Yeah, and I think it kind of also brings me to this, controversial debate around this issue as well. And I'll give you my take, but this idea that this sort of battle between people that are pro-West, people that are pro-East, right? So you have people that are pro-West, they have their own defense. People that are pro-East, usually their defense usually goes something like, well, at least China doesn't meddle in our affairs. They allow us to build all this infrastructure and all of that. But I think that the rational position is somewhere in the middle, where it says it's not really about which side, because all of these people, what they're missing is, the one important question: what's in it for us, right, as Africans?
Exactly.
So that should be the negotiating. That should be the negotiating, point to say, how do we benefit from either of those relationships? So I think both of them end up becoming exploitative as long as we do not know why. As long as so we should be able, ideally, to work with either partner that helps us achieve our goals. So I think so that's my take. So I'm interested in your take in sort of the same, around the same question or debate.
That's a tough one. That's such a tough one.
Yeah.
Because I think you're absolutely right. I think blind loyalty is, from a strategic position for us as Africans, blind loyalty is not wise. Whenever I look at any type of, relationship or deal or any, interaction with a person, what you must always realize is that people are people, countries are countries, and everyone's going to look out for their interests first before yours.
Exactly.
Yes, they can do something that also takes into account your interests, but their first
Yeah.
priority is their interests. That's number one.
Yeah.
So we should be the same. We should be the same when you look at any type of deal or any type of interaction. If there are two parties, one Chinese and one is Western, one is Eastern and one is Western, coming through for the same opportunity, let's weigh them on their opportunities and their risks
Yeah.
squarely and fairly. And of course, there's a lot of risks and opportunities that are, behind the scenes. But
Yeah.
we have very well educated people. We have very experienced people, very exposed people who need to sit down and do a cost benefit analysis. I think it would be
Yeah.
very unwise for us as Zimbabwe, as Africa, to just pick a side and ride with that side, especially with the way that the world is shaping at this moment. As the world becomes more polarized, we as Africa right now are the next frontier. And we don't want any one side to be able to take advantage of us. We are the next frontier, and we should be in a position where we have decision-making power.
Yeah. So, I mean, we that's one thing that also gets thrown around quite a lot, right? Africa is the future, and the one sort of indicator that people often give is sort of the demographic advantage that Africa has. A young 60% of our population, which is under the age of 18 or whatever, right? So I don't know if I got that state right. This is also almost always given as some kind of assurance or guarantee that Africa is going to be successful. What steps do you think we should take towards actually taking advantage of that kind of demographic advantage, and also other strategic advantages around the minerals that we have and all the sort of resources that we have in the form of arable land, in the form of minerals and all of that. And so what advantage do you think we can take first? And also, I mean, you gave like a sort of a dystopian kind of future that you are wary of, but can you also give like the opposite of that? What do you think Africa should look like in the next 10, 30, or a decade from now, or I mean, a century from now?
Okay. Let me just take those points down, because this is actually something that I'm very passionate about. So I think Africa is being pinned as the new frontier, right? But new frontier for who? That's question number one. When you're being called the new frontier, for who? Does that not just sound like another opportunity for exploitation for you? It's one of the things about global economics, and if you see what has happened in the past, is that countries have often, and this is exactly what's happening with the United States and China right now, is that they're fighting over markets. This is the big conflict between the United States and China. Markets.
Yeah.
People to sell to. Let me break that down into simple words. Markets means people to sell to. The Chinese products are in Asia. They're in Africa. They're in the United States. They're all over. This iPhone that I'm using right now is from the US, and they're selling it in Africa. So markets are really where the global competition is. So when Africa is then pinned as the new frontier, what does this mean? It means that there's going to be a generation whereby Africa has got the single biggest population in the world that people can sell to. And who are those people supposedly going to be? India, China, United States, the developed economies, right? And right now we are still in a position where we are a primary economy. We're an extractive economy. We're into agriculture. We're into mining. And that's great. What is, for example, one of the things that I find to be quite progressive is the position that Zimbabwe has taken in trying to position ourselves to process lithium and not just extract it and ship it. We need to start improving our industrial capacity to not just be an extractive economy whereby we are mining cobalt, we ship it out and receive it back into an iPhone and it's sold to us. We need to stop being a consumer economy and start actually being a producer economy. This is the real opportunity for Africa. This is the real opportunity of the frontier of Africa. When they speak of this new global market, when you look at infrastructure being placed around Africa, when you see people like China investing in infrastructure for Africa, do you think that infrastructure is for you? No, it's for them to be able to take things out and be able to ship things in and sell it to you. So we need to actually look at these opportunities and find a way to become active in our own economy. I would love to see a phone made in Zimbabwe being sold in Zambia. I would love to see
Yeah.
weaves made in Zambia being sold in Botswana. We need to invest in our own industrial capacity and be able to actually take advantage of the developing market
Yeah.
to really enjoy the benefits of this new Africa and moving into, Agenda 2060. That's the way we should be
Yeah.
going. Is to be you and me right now should be talking about manufacturing. We should be talking about, you've got the concept of the Africa Free Continental Trade Area, and that's what that is for. That's what that mechanism is for. But if
Yeah.
we are not manufacturing, if we are not creating a manufacturing-based society, then we're just going to be consumers of foreign goods. And when I speak of manufacturing, I'm not just talking about your basic items like foods, like clothing. These high tech items as well. We need to start
Yeah.
producing that. I've got a friend of mine. Shout out to Victor Mponga. I was very impressed with what
Yeah.
he's doing, where he's starting to make his own routers through Shona Prince Technologies. That's the type of advancement we need to be having as Africans, where we're actually getting involved
Yeah.
in making these high tech technologies. Cell phones.
Yeah.
These are things that have been around for a long time. Why are we not doing that? Cars have been around since forever, but we don't have one large scale manufacturer of cars in Africa.
Yeah.
I think that's one point. And with regards to taking advantage of the African opportunity again, it's the idea of just direct copy paste.
Yeah.
Again, it is good to take ideas from other places and see, okay, fine, this is how other countries have done it, this is how other societies and other communities have done it. But I think in our innovation, we need to create solutions that are uniquely African. Some of the technologies that I love, and I love it to use it as an example, M-Pesa and EcoCash. Those are two technologies that are uniquely African. You don't see that anywhere else. And they work wonders for our society. They work wonders for our community. Things like Inbox, they work wonders for our community because they took into account what are the problems that Africans are facing and how do we develop a solution for that particular community. So I think going into the future, we need to be creating solutions for that around healthcare, around transport, around education. We need to develop solutions looking at this great big African market that we have and apply that to the society that we're living in. Why are there not more virtual universities in Africa where we have an education crisis? Why are there not more virtual universities for our people? But we're just copying and pasting a model that we're seeing elsewhere and saying it's going to work here in Zimbabwe or in Africa, which is not true because we're different. And I think there was one more question. The question where you spoke about what I would like to see Africa looking like. And I think, the last answer I alluded to was one where there are technologies that are uniquely African. There's technologies where we're taking advantage of Mshika Shika, where there's technology for Mshika Shika. Look at that as a problem and turn it into an opportunity. Where the granny in the village, where Kumusha, is connected to internet, where she's connected to electricity, where that kid who makes a wire car is able to go onto the internet and find a way to make that wire car automated. That's the type of Africa I want to see. And if we can, because we've got a lot of creativity, we've got a lot of energy, but if we can link that creativity and that energy with modern technology, we can build great opportunities for the people of Africa.
Yeah, and I like what you alluded to when you spoke about the fact that it's not. We assume that some of this infrastructure is for us. It's like the people are excited about the Belt and Road Initiative by the Chinese. But if you think about it, they're the new Silk Roads that, like you're saying, it's just about not only bringing stuff to them, but also then selling that stuff back to us. So I think that's, you mentioned an important thing, that there should be some kind of balance and reciprocity between the relationships that we have. So I love that. But how do you think we can sort of, you spoke about Victor Mpunga. There's so many other entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs in Zimbabwe that are doing amazing things. How do you think we can sort of, support and share some of those stories? And also, encourage young entrepreneurs who are maybe at this point in primary school and high school to actually see or understand that some of these things are possible and it's possible to build.
It's a cultural thing, and Jabula. It's a cultural thing. We need to stop doing certain things and start doing certain things. And I think the first thing we need to start doing is promoting a meritocracy, a society and a culture of meritocracy. One of the reasons why the United States does so well is because they have a culture of excellence where they promote you based on merit. They believe in hard work. They believe in people earning a position. And in Zimbabwe, we have more of a culture of patronage and celebrity, where just because someone knows someone or someone is someone, that allows them access to opportunities. And they may not necessarily be the best people for that role. So I think we need to start promoting a culture of meritocracy, because what then happens is that the people who are your smart people, the people who have heart to work hard, the people who have the brains, they end up leaving the country because they realize that their effort, the value that they bring into the market is not being reciprocated or rewarded. So they end up leaving and offering those goods and services also. So I think that is definitely the type of, the types of celebrities we should be having in Zimbabwe. Are the likes of this guy that I'm telling you about, this, Victor Mponga. That should be your celebrity. Not dash, dash, dash. I won't say any names. But those should be the people we celebrate. Those should be our role models. Those should be our examples. Because if I tell you go and copy the model of dash, dash, dash and be like him, you won't know where to start. But if I tell you go and copy the model of this young man who's inventing this technology, you can see a journey for you to eventually get there. You can tell your son or your brother, okay, work hard, study, apply to go to this university. That's a route that you can follow.